We're going to look at the Vīmaṁsaka Sutta. Vīmaṁsaka means, Vimamsana means investigation, Vimaṁsana. Here Vīmaṁsaka means of the person, the investigator. So this is a discourse on the investigator. And this is from Majjhima Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 47. You can see all this here, and 47. The theme, even the Buddha should be investigated. And the Buddha himself said, you must investigate whatever you want to practice. Don't just blindly believe in religion. So in that sense, you see the Buddha is not really teaching a religion. It's telling us to think for ourselves, practice for ourselves. Now, this sutta is one in a set, along with the Kesa Puttiya Sutta and the one we studied the last time, Appanaka Sutta, in terms of investigating. Now, some scholars and teachers will tell you that the Kesa Puttiya Sutta or the Kalama Sutta A 3.65 is about free inquiry. Actually, that's not correct. The Kesa Puttiya Sutta or Kalama Sutta is more about what are called the valid sources of knowledge. How can we know something really correctly and truly? That is what the Kesa Puttiya Sutta is about. If you talk about free inquiry, it is today's sutta, the Vimaṁsaka Sutta. This is about free inquiry. If you want to do free inquiry, you also need to have what's called personal verification. You got to verify the truth for yourself, examine it, experience it. Open investigation. Right? So this is what the Buddha teaches us in this sutta. Verification and free inquiry. In this case, the Buddha says, examine him, examine the Buddha himself. So let's look at this sutta now. Let's go down to the translation. That is on page 203. The Vimaṁsaka Sutta. A bit more. Okay, here we are. The Discourse on the Investigator, M47. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was residing in Anathapindika's monastery park in Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. There the Blessed One addressed the monks, bhikshus. Bhante, the monks replied to the Blessed One. And the Blessed One said this. So here, once again, we have the Buddha teaching unprompted. The monks are assembled, ready to listen, and every day the Buddha would teach them something new. Can you imagine how interesting life is for the monks that throughout the 45 years, every day the Buddha comes up with a new teaching or variations of the whole teaching, and these teachings are recorded and handed down for our benefit. But you must imagine 45 years of teaching, that's really a lot. Now, I don't know how many percent of the teaching is handed down to us today. I'm sure a lot of teachings are not recorded. Many teachings were lost, but we have enough of the essential teachings in the Pali Canon, in the Tipitaka, to help us practice. When you do your meditation, you practice your calmness, or practice your mindfulness, this will help you to understand the suttas in a better way. So it doesn't really matter how many suttas in printed form or in word form that exist. We have enough of the recording of the voice of the Buddha to teach us to understand how to practice. Today is one of those suttas. So here the Buddha begins with this instruction, section 2. The Tathagata bhikshu should be examined by a monk, an investigator, or one who investigates. who does not know how to read another's mind, so that he will know whether the Blessed One is fully awakened or not. Right, so in these 3 lines, you can see a very important statement by the Buddha, telling us how we, even though we are not awakened, we do not know how to read anyone's mind, we're just a normal person like you and I today, but we can still know whether this teacher is bona fide, is true or not, or even awakened or not. We can do that, says the Buddha. So here, it's like a duty should be examined, right? We should do that. We should not take teachers for granted. If you do that, then you end up in a cult and you're going to suffer for a long time. And if you're lucky, you meet the true Dharma, you come out of it unscathed. I have a few friends who are like that, who are very fortunate. They've gone through a lot of suffering. So they're very precious friends because they have gone through the difficulty. And so they know how precious the Dharma is. Here it says by a monk, right? A monk here means anyone listening to the sutta, studying the sutta, and we investigate. We should investigate because we do not know. Because we are unable to read anyone's minds, but we can know. We will know, says the Buddha, whether this person is enlightened or not. All right. Then the Buddha said, how do you know this? Okay? The monks, of course, are very humble. They just say they do not know. Okay. Let's look at part 3 now, section 3. The monks say, Bhante, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One, guided by the Blessed One, have the Blessed One as refuge. It would be good indeed if the Blessed One were to explain its meaning. Having heard the Blessed One, the monks will remember it. Then the Buddha says, listen, bhikshus, pay close attention to it. I will speak. So the Buddha is telling, get ready, all right? The monks reply, yes, Bhante, in unison, right? So imagine this, a very beautiful resonant reply, single voice, and then there is this echo. The Blessed One said this. So when you see this line, the teaching is coming, all right? So there are different points here. So this is a numbering of the Pali verses, the Pali sections, and then you have the brackets of the points following the heading. Number 1, the Tathagata bhikshus. Notice Tathagata here refers to the Buddha himself, thus come. He arises just like that, because the time is right. So it's not being sent by anybody, it's not any kind of prophet. You can say by the process of spiritual evolution, the Buddha arises as the wisest amongst us. Nowadays, one of the latest interesting approach to modern Buddhism is from the evolutionary psychology approach. Right, so here the Tathagata is that the most highly evolved human, all the humans in this, in our time, if you like. The Tathagata bhikshus should be examined in 2 ways, or regarding two things, 2 states. By a monk who is an investigator, who is inquisitive, who does not know how to read another's mind, and that is states cognizable by the eye and by the ear. So this is something you see for yourself and you hear what the Buddha says by listening. From there you will know whether he's awakened or not, he's right or not, he's good or not. You can ask a question like, does he find any defiled states cognizable by the eye, by the ear, in the Tathagata or not? Okay. So in other words, if you are the investigator, do you see any defiled state, any unwholesome states in this teacher? Or do you hear him talking anything which is not wholesome? Right. So this is how we investigate, by looking and by hearing. Not just the Buddha, of course. Today, any teacher, right? You investigate that way. When he investigates him thus, he comes to know thus. Defiled states cognizable by the eye or by the ear are not found in the Tathagata. From investigating him, he knows thus. Defiled states cognizable by the eye or by the ear are not found in the Tathagata, and thereupon he investigates him further. So it just doesn't stop there, it goes on. What is the next one? Number 2. Next, further down, please. Yes, go down a bit more. Does he have any mixed states? Okay. Round number 6 now. Yeah. In other words, mixed states here, good and bad combined. Sometimes talk good things, sometimes talk bad things. Are there any mixed states? Right. So I'm going to shorten all the reading here so that we will keep in time. So by looking and by listening, we find that, oh, the Buddha doesn't have this kind of mixed up state. Right? We're happy with that. Then number 6, from investigating him, he knows this. Mixed states recognizable by the eye or by the ear are not found in the Tathagata. And you don't stop there. You go on to the next one. Does he find any purified or cleansed states recognizable by the eye or by the ear in the Tathagata? And we see his actions and his words. Are they purified? Are they truly about the Dharma and so on? Right. So we look carefully and we say, okay, we can see that, we can hear that. Now the next question is number 4 here. Okay, has this venerable one? Notice here it changes to this venerable one. It can apply to anyone, any teacher. Attained to this wholesome state for a long time, or has he attained it for only a short while? This can mean also momentarily only, right? In other words, sometimes some teachers, they show a bit of goodness at that time, they're in a good mood, but then other times they're not in a good mood when they teach Dharma especially, right? So again here, when we examine the Buddha here, Venerable One can be the Buddha or any teacher. We find that this Venerable One has attained to this wholesome state for a long time. That means, in the case of the Buddha, from day one, has been consistently like that. A good, wonderful person. Now the next one here is brackets 5. Here it is in section 8, but this point is point number 5. So this teacher has become famous and become renowned, and he has received certain advantages. You know, people respect him, and he gets a lot of gifts and so on and so forth, and even become rich. Is that the case? Right? So, but when we examine the Buddha, we find that is not the case. It's not someone to accumulate wealth and so on, things like that. Yeah. So that is the 4th one. Then we go down further. Just bracket 6. Bracket 6. Go down some more, please. Some more, a bit more. Yes, here you can see here. Is the Venerable One restrained for fear? It is because of fear. Or is he restrained by fear? Okay, I'll read through this first and I'll explain, because this was a bit tricky. Does he not indulge in sense pleasures on account of being lust-free by having destroyed it? When he investigates him thus, he knows thus. The Venerable One is neither restrained for fear, nor is this Venerable One restrained by fear. He indulges not in sensual pleasures on account of being lust-free, having destroyed it, having destroyed lust, in other words. Now, my understanding is here that Buddha does not use fear to teach his disciples or the teachers. And he himself is not controlled by fear. He is not practicing or didn't become Buddha because of fear. but rather because of knowing, because of understanding. And this is amazing for the Buddha to say this 2,500 years ago, because you find many religions today, the major religions, they use fear, right? For example, you have people saying, those God believers, you say the fear of God is the beginning of religion, right? Because fear is not a very good emotion. It's not very helpful. It puts you in a lesser position, and you have this bigger dominating figure, right? So we don't have that kind of teaching. So here is the way the Buddha teaches, the way the Buddha himself sees the Dharma, right? So the Buddha is loving. He uses the Dharma, teaches the Dharma in a loving way, and he is free from lust. So we can see all that in the case of the Buddha. And now the next point, we go down to 10. Okay, we go down to number 10. I'm going to summarize this one. When we look at Buddha very carefully, we say, now, is he well behaved? In the Brahmayu Sutta, D91, we have the 120-year-old Brahmin Brahmali, Brahmayu rather, sorry, who heard that the Buddha is in town, in the same city, and he sends his pupil, Uttara, to find out whether the Buddha has all the 32 marks of the great man or not. And Uttara investigates the Buddha. He sees that the Buddha, he discovers that the Buddha has all the 32 marks. That means he is truly the great man. But what's amazing here, the says the Sutta, is that Uttara stays on for 7 months, shadowing the Buddha, 7 months, staying very close and watching the Buddha to see how he behaves, whether he's morally virtuous, is he good, for 7 months. And the Sutta describes very carefully, step by step, how the Buddha behaves, how the Buddha stands, how the Buddha sits, how the Buddha walks in the monastery, among the houses, and so on, in great detail. And then he goes back and tells his teacher, Brahmayu, that the Buddha not only has the 32 marks of the great man, he also has this perfect moral virtue, right? So here we see this idea stated in section 10 of the Sutta, right? And that's not all. In section 10.2, you will find, I'm going to read 10.2, is bhikshus, the monk, answering like rightly, would he answer thus, now whether this venerable one is dwelling in the community or is alone. Go further down, please. There are those who teach a group where some are well-behaved, some are ill-behaved. But some here are engaged in worldly things, some are untainted by worldly things. This venerable one does not despise any one of them on that account, right? So you find that from this reading, we can guess that this sutta was given at a time when there were a lot of monks. So some were good, some were bad. But although there are these different kinds of monks, the Buddha does not despise any one of them. The Buddha teaches them all the same. For I have heard this from the Blessed One himself. I have learned this before the Blessed One himself. Right? I am neither restrained for fear, nor am I restrained by fear. I indulge not in sense pleasures on account of being lust-free by having destroyed it. So the Buddha is not biased. He doesn't use fear to teach others, whether these people are good or they are bad. He teaches them all the same, knowing they can become better. All right. Now, then the sutta kind of repeats itself to summarize everything. The Buddha has no defiled states, right? So whatever defiled state we can see or hear are not there, not present in the Buddha. Okay, that's number one. Number two, go further down, please. Okay, there are no mixed states in the Buddha. There are no whatever purified states there, they can be seen in the Buddha, in other words. No? Whatever purified states. Okay, let me check this later. Huh? So now in the next section, the Buddha talks about wise faith in the teacher. How do we approach a teacher? And what's our attitude in terms of faith? Section 14. Go to 14, please. Further down, section 49. Bhikshus, a disciple should approach the teacher who speaks thus for the sake of hearing Dhamma. The teacher teaches him Dhamma ever higher, ever subtler, with its dark and its bright counterparts. In other words, good aspect, positive aspect, negative aspects. Okay, so here the Buddha is talking about how he teaches and how we should respond to his teaching. Okay, now I'm going to stop here for a while. Now, I just a correction. Just now I was reading section 11 onwards. Huh? This just to correct. Now, so in section 11, the Buddha is saying, this time the investigator, that's you and I, we should ask ourselves, are there any defiled states, right, that you can see in the Buddha or the teacher, or anything defiled things you can hear that this teacher, some wrong things that the teacher is teaching or talking with others in the wrong way and so on, whether we see in action or in speech, okay, or whether this teacher, his actions are mixed, good and bad. So it's not consistent, in other words, whether we see or hear in that way, and whether there are what you call things which are not purified. Okay, so this is just a correction for section 11. Now then we come to the faith. The Buddha says, okay, a disciple should approach the teacher who speaks thus for the sake of hearing Dhamma. The pupil approaches a good teacher, and the teacher teaches him Dhamma. And if this person can find such a teacher, it's really wonderful. 14.2, Bhikshus, as the teacher teaches the Dhamma, as teaches the monk the Dhamma, ever higher, ever subtler, with its dark and bright counterpart in this way, he, through direct knowledge of a certain teaching, here in the Dhamma, is convinced of the teaching. He is radiant with faith in the teacher. Thus, the Buddha, the Blessed One, is fully self-awakened. Well taught is the Blessed One's teaching. The holy community keeps to the good way, that is well practiced. Now, you can see here, these are the three jewels. Sama Sambuddho Bhagava. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. Right? So Bhagava is the Buddha, Dhammo is the teaching. Supatipanno Sangho. So there's also a kind of short reflection on the three jewels. If bhikshus others were to ask that monk thus, but what are the Venerable One's reasons? What is evidence that the Venerable One speaks thus? The Blessed One is fully self-awakened, well taught is the Blessed One's teaching. The holy community keeps to the good way, or is well practiced. Then his reply is that he has investigated, has gone to see. In other words, you repeat all the previous section. This monk has approached the Buddha, observed him, listened to him, and make sure that he speaks consistently. It's good all the time. There is no mixed kind of actions or mixed words, good and bad. And he is consistently good ever since the start. It's not just for a short time, not just recently, but all the while, ever since he was a teacher, he's like that. So the Buddha is like that. Okay, and so the Buddha's closest to teaching, 16 is the last verse. I go down to 16. Right. So, the Piya is a repeat section. Bhikshus whose faith in the Tathagata is certain, well-rooted, established in these ways, these sentences, these words. This bhikshus is called faith with good cause, rooted in vision, firm. Notice the word faith is used here, right? Some modern Buddhists think that we should not use the word faith because it's found in other God religions. No, we should not be defined by other religions, because the word faith is just a word, faith. It means we have joy in the Buddha's teaching, but in this case, it is with a good cause, rooted in vision. That means we have seen this, we have understood it, understood the teaching, and we are firm about it. Firm, that means we are rooted in it, we are strong in it because of our understanding. Faith with a good cause, rooted in vision, firm. It is immovable, invincible by any recluse or Brahmin or Deva or Mara or Brahma, or by anyone in the world, right? So this person is convinced of the Buddha's teaching. Thus, indeed, bhikshus, is the Dhamma investigation in the Tathagata, and thus too is the Tathagata well investigated in accordance with the Dhamma. Notice, in accordance with the Dhamma. Right? The Blessed One said this, satisfied, the monks rejoice in the Blessed One's word. All right, so this is not a very long sutta actually. It's nice, we have about 20 minutes. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Piya, for the teaching. Now we have a Q&A. Sister Aisim will take over the session. Sister Aisim, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, brother and sister. Thank you, Sister Ratna. Thank you, Brother Piya, for the Sutta teaching for today. Yeah. Brother and sister, if you have any questions, you can type your questions in the chat box, or you can ask verbally. You may unmute and ask your question. Thank you. Brother Piya, at the moment, there is no question in the chat box.
Okay. Yes. Okay, please do unmute yourself and turn on your video also, please, if you're ready.
Can I ask a question, Brother Piya? Mayank here.
Okay, yes, go on.
Brother Piya, my question is that do you ever use fear as a motivating tool to get people's actions in line with dharma or with the teaching, so to speak?
Well, motivation means you move people to action. So the way is to tell people that it's up to them. It's the approach of self-reliance. It's not a matter of what I say is right or wrong, or of course in this case, whatever I say may be right, but that's not the point. The point is, do you see it for yourself? If you see it for yourself, then you will be motivated to act. So self-reliance means you are the one who is empowered to do it, because if you don't do it, then no one can help you. And I think that's a very good motivating tool, to tell people that only they can do it. No teacher, a teacher can, like, stretch his hand out, but you got to hold on to it, and you also got to make an effort to move, to work. Right. So we have to be careful not to be over-dependent on the teacher. Then you end up as a God religion, where you'll be dependent on the pastor, dependent on some higher authority. So you see this inside you, you feel happy, and then you can bring happiness and motivate others. And this is the important thing, in other words. It's just like parenting, you see. So you start off, of course, trying to help this child who is young and weak and ignorant. And slowly this child grows up. And then you slowly learn to teach this child how to be independent, or this child himself or herself will feel it, will know when to become independent. And this part is very important. Otherwise, we will not grow, and this is going to create a lot of problems for the person. So self-motivation is the key word here. Self-motivation means you can do it, or I can do it, that kind of idea. And basically, it's learning through mistakes. Not afraid to make mistakes, but more importantly is to learn from those mistakes, to see cause and effect, how the causes and the effects work, so that you can detect this relationship in future actions. That's wisdom. Okay?
And I have a follow-up question to your answer, Brother Piya, but I need to be a little bit candid in this question. Okay. So my question is that why do you always speak negatively about God or God religion? Especially given that I understand that some people still think of God as a kind of like a being, creator being up there in the clouds with having white beard and all, like a father figure. But for example, many people, if you speak to them in India, even from other religions, say Hinduism, Sikhism, anything, so quite a few of them, they might, when you say the word God, they would just refer to it as something as, the universe or existence itself, or maybe even law, like not exactly law of karma, but kind of something like that. That's something if you do good, so kind of like a protective agency, or you can say just universe or life instead of a being. So many people, like here, from what I have experienced, refer to it like that, kind of like a power, a source of energy, or something like that.
Well, my simple answer is I have full faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So I speak for myself. I can't speak for them. So that's my simple answer. Okay. We have to be very careful not to spread things too thinly, and then in the end we lose everything. Be very careful. So in a sense, we got to know where we stand. There's nothing wrong with being friends with others. I have many friends who are not Buddhists. The thing is, are we willing to stand up for our faith, for our religion, or are we always looking over our shoulders and worried about others? And in the end, we are nowhere. Yeah, so we have to be very careful about that. Okay. All right. Any other question about the Dhamma?
Sadhu Bante.
Yes.
Yes, the sutta now, since the Tathagata has spoken until now, these days the investigations is conducted more by the order itself, higher monks investigating the conduct or the junior monks, rather than by the lay people who are looking for a teacher. Would that be that would be seem to be the case now? And when did this happen since Buddha's time, and when did it become investigative by the authorities, so to speak?
No, like I said, if you look at the sutta, there are clues there which tell us that this teaching was given at a time when there are probably a lot of monks. And many of these monks, they're probably just admiring the Buddha, or they're just believing things, So he's speaking to the unawakened monks and, of course, the laymen or lay people to look at the Buddha first. Because if they don't look at the Buddha, then they will be having this wrong idea of the Buddha. And then they have to listen to him very carefully so that they get the right teaching. So as far as the awakened monks are concerned, awakened lay disciples are concerned, there's no problem. So these are for those who are new who are still seeking. So in a sense, the Buddha is telling us to seek the Dhamma in a right way, to look for, to listen to the Dhamma in a right way, right? So this is where, in a sense, we have to question ourselves also. What am I looking for? What do I want in the religion? Do I want to understand the teachings so that I become a better person? Or do I just want to know things and then become important, please other people, and become popular? Right? So you find some teachers, they're very nice, nothing is wrong, everything is okay, And we say, oh, this teacher is very good. In other words, he doesn't have any beliefs at all. He doesn't have any faith at all in the Dhamma. And that can be quite problematic, especially when you have problems, okay? So here the Buddha is basically telling you, watch, listen, and question. You ask questions just to be sure that you know correctly, you understand correctly what you understand, what you know, basically. That what you know is connected with the three jewels in the right way. Okay, I hope that helps. If not, please ask again. So we can summarize this approach by the two keywords in the sutta, by looking and by listening, right? So you look at people, for example, you find a lot of people praying and doing religious rituals, but how do they behave outside of those prayers and rituals? Do they behave as good people? All right? What if you find someone, they go to the temple, they pray very nice with their children and so on, they bow down. But when they go home, they are violent with their families and they beat up their children and they're very violent and so on. That you show there is a discordance there, right? So the religious training doesn't really help, right? So in other words, religion, or rather, should I say that the Dhamma, in this case, the Buddha Dhamma, should change us. It's not something we should know. It's more than just knowing. It is something that gives us that inner peace, inner strength, inner courage. So we know for ourselves, and we're not even afraid to be alone when we find other people have wrong beliefs. Because some people, they're not interested in religion because they are very worldly and so on. Then, of course, you wouldn't say, oh, since it is a fashion, I'm also going to be like them. And it won't be very helpful, right? So this is where we show by our example that we will stand up for the Dhamma. And so you find other people, they want to learn the Dhamma also. The Buddha was like that. He began like that, all alone by himself. Can you imagine the Buddha rising in the world all by himself in a country where there's so many religions, right? And he spoke up. He spoke up against the Brahmins, very strong words, very clear words. And his words are remembered to this day. Okay, so I'm just trying to follow his example.
Yeah, hi, thank you very much, Brother Piya. Lucky here.
Yes, okay.
Can I ask a question outside this topic?
Sure.
It's regarding the sutta on the 32 parts of the body. Yeah, many parts of the body, the inside, the outside of the body have been mentioned, but there are a few parts that are not highlighted. And one in particular is this organ on the pancreas, which I thought is an important part of one of the organ in the body. I'm wondering, is there any reason why this organ was not mentioned?
I think it depends on the Buddha's time, whether the people know about these parts or not. From the reflection on the 32 parts, we can guess that in the Buddha's time, the people already were like they're setting corpses and they're aware of all these organs, But then remember, this meditation is not an anatomical practice. it is meditation. So, for example, in the suttas, you find only 31 parts are mentioned, 31 parts. The 32nd part is commentary. It was added in by Buddhaghosa, and that is on the brain. Because in the Buddhist time, they didn't consider the brain as a part of the body for reflection. I'm sure they know there is a mass of, you know, a blob of brain there, but they didn't see it as important to reflect on that. Remember, you don't have to list everything. It's not an anatomical book, a scientific book. It's for reflection. So some parts, there are many other parts, I'm sure, if you're a medical doctor, will not be listed there. Now, the question is, why did Buddhaghosa add this 32nd part on the brain? I'm just hazarding a guess here. Because if you look at that section, I think it's got only 4 or 5. This number is missing. I forget the exact number. But the last one is a rather awkward word. It's dung, reflecting on dung. So, you know, all these sets of what you call organs, they are labeled by the last item. All right. So you have the dung set in this case, D-U-N-G, dung set, because the last item is dung, you see. And you know, dung is a rather nasty plant, with something we don't like to reflect on, but that's the one. So it's not awkward, you see. So I suppose Buddhaghosa felt to give a nicer tone to the list, why do we put brain in there? See, so it became the brain pentat or the brain sextet, you know. So it became the brain set. So it sounds like, you know, sounds better. That's one possible explanation. So that makes it 32 parts. Of course, you can go to numerology. You know, you have 31 planes of suffering, and then the 32nd plane is nirvana. See, I mean, so to speak, nirvana is not a plane, but it's something like way out of 31. So this in terms of numerology. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether, you know, we have the pancreas or not. Important thing is we're reflecting, okay, we are made up of parts. Why do we reflect we are made up of parts? This idea of conditionality. If any part is not working, then the whole body gets affected, you know. So there is this idea of impermanence, of suffering. So that's the purpose. It's not to remember so many parts of the body like a doctor does. A doctor would do that, but our purpose is, in the end, not to really bother about the specific items. It is the effect of this reflection. We say, oh, my body is like this. It is conditioned. It is impermanent. You know, that is the effect of it. It is the Dhamma effect, if you like. Okay. So there are many parts.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think these parts of the body is very interesting, because the monk is, when the person becomes a monk, he's taught the first 5. It is so often recited until now. I still remember it is Kesa, Loma, Naka, Danta, Tacho. Right. But Kesa, head hair, then body hair, Loma, Kesa, Loma, Danta is teeth, Tacho, Kesa, Loma, Danta, Tacho. This what they call skin. So it's called the skin pentat. Pentat means 5. So the monk is supposed to reflect on these 5 parts of the body. This is what I am, and it's all impermanent, you know. So he recites Kesa, Loma, Danta, Tacho, and then frontward, backwards, like that, until he knows all these parts well, and he just sits down quietly and reflects. This is what I am. And this Tacha Panchaka Kamatana is called Tacha Panchaka Kamatana. Tacha, very interesting, because Tacha is also very close to the English word touch. It means the skin. Okay. Panchaka means 5th. Skin as the 5th. Okay, number 5. Or the set of 5 with skin as the last one. Kamatana is meditation. This is a reflection on earth element. These are all the earth element. And then there are, I think, 3 sets, all earth element and then water element. Okay, so these are some interesting points about reflection on the body. Okay, no more questions, huh? All right, so in that case, we will close here. So once again, this is the time we quietly reflect on this moment. We have studied the Vimaṁsaka Sutta, reminding us to question our teachers, to question ourselves also, and to, in other words, investigate how we know things, understand it correctly, to reflect on self-reliance, make the effort to understand the Dhamma for ourselves so that we self-awaken, just like the Buddha did. So this is not to look down on the teacher either. Rather, it is to respect the Dhamma. So this is what the Vīmaṁsaka Sutta is about. Remember these wonderful moments that you have spent today by way of spiritual renunciation. You spend some time reciting the 3 refuges, the 5 precepts. You've done some meditation, listen to the Dhamma, ask questions. By all this wonderful good karma, may you be well, may you be happy. Just tell yourself, may I be well, may I be happy, so on. And send your thoughts of loving kindness to your loved ones, those who are important to you. And also to people with whom you have difficulties, wish them well and happy. And finally, let us together show our respect to the 3 jewels that have brought us together here in the Dhamma. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.